In this lesson, I'll show you how to add authentication feature to an app. We need authentication so users can register and log into our app. We'll also take a look at how to add a database for our app. Most apps need to save data, so we need a database to support that. The most convenient way to add authentication and database to your app is to use Supabase, a complete backend service which makes it easier for us to add these features. So now I'll show you how to add login and database using Supabase. Now we have our app open. So you see here that we have our task manager app. So what we want to do is if a user adds a task, for example, it will save to a database. And for that data, it should actually be just for the specific user. So how do we do that? So we can do that by adding authentication or login to our app, meaning that when a user logs in and he adds a task, it will only be under his user. So the task should only be under the user's information. So how do we do that? So what we'll do is we'll connect Supabase. So there are two ways to do that. So you can go to integrations here and you click here, add database or function. So when you click here, it's going to open authorization. So when we click authorize Bolt, we are giving Bolt access to our Supabase account. Another way to do that is to go to your profile, then you click on settings, then you click on applications, then you click this connect button. This process will basically be the same process as the one we did earlier. So the next step that we need to do is to create a project in Supabase for our app. So let's do that now. So let's click on integrations. Let's click on Supabase. Then let's click on create new project. Let's name it to do app. Then let's just use our password manager to create a new password. Make sure you save this password because this will be handy if you need to access your database from another tool that needs the password. So let's choose a region and let's click create new project. So what it will do is it will create our database in Supabase. So let's click on let's go to confirm. Okay, so now Bolt is working on creating a project in Supabase. So the nice thing about Bolt, it has official integration with Supabase. So when you create a project from Bolt or a database from Bolt, it will automatically be created in Supabase. So we now see here in our Supabase, let's see if we can see the project being created. So we now see our new project here. This means it's setting this project up so we can have a database and authentication later on. Just take note of this project status. It's spinning up or booting up different services. You need to wait for all these services to be finished so we can go back to Bolt and prompt it again to create the data into our database and use the login feature in Supabase. So now we see that all the services are created and healthy. So this means that in our project, we have a database, we have auth, we have storage and edge functions as well. So if you look here in the left, you have a sidebar where you can see your tables, meaning this is where your data will be stored. Then we also have authentication, where we can see all the users that are created in our project. So right now we don't have any because we haven't told Bolt to integrate it for us. So now we go back to Bolt and ask it to add login and database for us. Okay, so we're asking Bolt to add login and sign up using Supabase, which is the authentication feature that we need to add, and also save and read data from the database. So let's do that now. We already created a Supabase project, so we will be able to integrate it with Bolt. So now Bolt will create files that it's needed for the Supabase integration. So it will create a supabase.ts file, which we see here, and some SQL files that will contain the SQL commands that will be executed for our project. So this will contain the tables that we need to save the data of our task to Supabase. Then we have some features for our login and sign up. You can take note of the files that Bolt is creating. So later on, when you're investigating an issue, you can look at these files and target the files, for example, when you're fixing it. Normally, all your functions will be in supabase.ts here, source lib supabase.ts. That's where you will look at how Bolt is retrieving data or saving data to Supabase. So not so now it's able to create all these files. So it created an authentication feature which has an email, password, sign up, and login. Then user profile menu with sign out. Then your app only authenticated users will be able to access your pages of your app. Then you have database integration where it created a to-dos table with user relationships file, then security policies, and syncing the UI and the database with your data. Then some UI enhancements here. So now since we need to review what Bolt will execute to Supabase. So this is what we need to do. We need to approve these changes. So it will create the new table and security policies for us. So let's click apply changes. So now once this is already applied, we can now check our Supabase if the table is actually created. So we go back to our table editor. We see the to-dos table created. So let's look at our database here. You will see that it created a table with an ID column, a text column, completed column, created that column, and user ID column. So I say it's column, but you can also call it fields. When I say column, because when you look at your table editor, you see this as columns. Then you will have your data here saved in your table. So now we also still don't have the authentication, but we will solve that by logging in later or signing up. So let's go back to our application. So let's click sign in here since we don't have a account yet. So let's click sign up, then let's sign into our app. Okay, so now we created an account called melvin@test.com. Let's see now in Supabase if this user is actually created. So now let's go to the authentication menu item here. Then let's just refresh this. When we now see that when we sign up, it already created an account for us here. So meaning that our authentication, our sign up feature actually works. So we go to our table editor, we still don't see data because I haven't added any data for our user. So now let's try to add a new task. So create an app. Let's click plus. Okay, so we now have one task added. Let's see now if our database reflects that data. So now we go to our table editor. So we just refresh our table. And we now see that the task that we saved in our app is actually saved in our database, which is hosted in Supabase. So now we can try editing our to-do also. So let's call it application. Let's see if the edit works. So we change the app to application. Then let's refresh our table. So now our data is also updated. So meaning our adding of task and updating of task works. So now let's delete this task. Then let's see if it's also deleted in our database. All right. So that worked. Our data was deleted if we deleted in our app. So now we see that our application is already integrated with authentication and a database. So that's how you connect your Bolt project or your app to Supabase and add login and database functionality to it.